What is up, guys? Welcome into another episode of From the Wing. I am Christian Clark, the Pelicans beat writer for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. We are back. We are so back. Today was media day at Smoothie King Center. It was earlier in the morning than it typically is, mainly because the Pelicans flew out this afternoon to Nashville for training camp. I will be joining the team in Nashville tomorrow. I'll be spending my week there. Really looking forward to it. At media day today, we heard from Brandon Ingram for the first time since the spring. We got some, I don't even know if they're answers. I mean, Willie Green talked about what he wants to do with the starting lineup. Spoiler alert. Not many answers, and we'll see during training camp. Herb Jones switched numbers. DeJounte Murray is an alpha and so much more. Adam, how much of this did you get to watch today?
I'd with open disclaimer that anything I may say might be fictional in case my employers are watching. Not much at all, except for a lot of it. Most of it, probably almost all of it. So yeah, for right off the rip, like we talked about this, like what do we expect out of media day? Can I just tell you, I am inordinately jacked up. Like we've been talking hypothetically about the roster, how the lineup's going to work, and it's like a little depressing. It's like a little like it subdues you a little bit, and then media day happens, and I'm like, you know what? I'm done with all that. All of the possibilities are here.
Hope springs eternal.
We got Griff out here making a fine California Cobb word salad, telling us everything we can and can't expect without any real detail or answers. They're just like, hey, we're here. Everybody loves each other. Eat your Wheaties, take your vitamins, and let's see how this ship rolls. Ooh, he's got the dangerous can there, folks. That can scares me. Yeah, I'm so hyped. We had the Griff and Bryson go first. We hypothesized, will them or Willie tell you anything? We kind of got what we expected, right? Like, I'm sure you feel like we got pretty much exactly what you expected. They didn't say anything to you that I saw about we're going to shoot 43s, though. I was hoping.
Yeah, no number of threes, no 3-point attempts number put on it this year. Willie Green did say, I want to take a few more, but yeah, did not put a number on it.
I wanted it so bad for you.
We're going to start off with the Ingram stuff because I felt like that was definitely the most newsy. But before we get to that, just want to give a shout out to our presenting sponsor, Crescent Canna, which is, of course, New Orleans' #1 cannabis company and the maker of the highly satisfying Crescent 9 THC seltzer with uplifting and relaxing effects. Crescent 9 is my favorite drink to enjoy while I'm watching a game, while I'm watching HBO at night. I watched the Industry season finale last night, which was excellent with a little Crescent 9 in my life. I got the Wobble right now, 10 milligram with a little bit of energy kick. I've been up since 5:30 and doing a lot of stuff today. So this is the good one. Thank you again to Crescent Canada. All right, Adam. Brandon Ingram. Here's my headline on this. After hearing Brandon Ingram speak for the first time since the spring, this is not ideal, but we're going to try to make this work. Is that a fair reading of what we heard from Brandon Ingram, David Griffin, and the Pelicans today?
Yeah, everybody was just kind of realistic. And it's weird. Maybe the weirdest thing that comes out of it is BI was no different physically and emotionally than he like ever is at a media day, but at the same time it comes off as like maybe he's depressed, but like you could have said that about any year.
I don't think he was at all. I don't think he was at all.
Like I just think it's easy for us to read his demeanor that way because that is just his demeanor. Like that is how he carries himself all the time. I had some people be like, oh, he's still here. That's like kind of depressing. Like I think he sounded exactly the same as he always does. It sounds like what we have been told and what we have been telling listeners is just true. They get along plenty fine. They both realize some realities that are happening right now economically for the team. And they're still here. And he's a professional dude. And his teammates love him. Happy to get around the guys again. And we're going to go play some basketball.
Yeah, I thought the money quote from the 15 minutes or so that Brandon talked was, as long as I do the basketball part, the business is going to handle itself, whether it's here or somewhere else. That's the first time in Brandon Ingram's New Orleans tenure I've heard him even, broach the possibility that he is playing basketball somewhere other than New Orleans. I mean, look, to me, this seems like the most likely outcome, that at the start of next season, Brandon Ingram is on a different team. Things can definitely change, and like things change so rapidly with the Pelicans. You'd often look like a fool for predicting like what's going on with this team a year from now. But look, if you look at next season, the books for next season, Zion Williamson above 30 mil a year, CJ above 30 mil a year, DeJounte Murray above 30 mil a year. I think Trey Murphy is going to want a contract extension that will kick in the season after this one that will maybe approach $30 million a year. That's four dudes on your books for the season after this one, making around 30, above 30. That's a lot for New Orleans. Five, not going to happen.
Yeah. And what we talk about, like there's a swell of cash and cap that's coming, but we're like, that's over the course of years. Being a significant luxury tax team has never been something that this team has been after. It would just require, it's like the same context we've always been given. If somehow the amount of ball handling and distribution and usage that is commanded by each of these players reaches a balance where like BI's at 23% usage and is putting up 6 and 7 threes a game because it's the only way for him to score because he doesn't have enough of the ball. If that miracle occurs, then maybe we could broach a really exciting topic. If they did something absolutely crazy and ran out the box with like, do like the Thunder thing, the unexpected first place, and you have Zion in his prime, like maybe then we could have a different conversation. But that crazy stuff would have to happen first. This seems headed toward a very, very distinct direction. We've known that, we've heard that, we've kind of gotten confirmation of that today. And it's kind of what we expected. He's a good dude, and he said the right things, and he's going to show up to work. Kevin Durant was put in a similar position. These guys have like archetypally have been kind of similar. Once upon a time, the Brooklyn Nets planned on Kevin Durant coming to work and being a professional, and we're doing the same with Brandon Ingram. He gets along with everybody. There's nothing terrible. The questions are all about like, how does it feel once they start playing?
Yeah, I mean, and to be clear, that place where it seems like we're headed to is go into the season with Brandon on an expiring deal, raise his trade value a little bit, wait for things to change in the league, and then move him for a deal that makes sense for the Pelicans, and is a landing spot that makes sense for Brandon Ingram. And things can change too. That's just what it looks like right now. Like a lot of things could change. I mean, I'm not saying that's 100% what's going to happen, but that seems like we're headed right now. A couple of other notes, based on what Brandon said, what David Griffin said. David Griffin said Brandon Ingram would take less than the maximum amount, which is $208 million over 4 years, a little more than $50 million annually. I don't know whether that's actually true or not. I don't know if it is true, how much below the maximum amount, but I thought that was a note that Griff said that on the record. And to be honest, I mean, we're never going to find out, like all the details of a negotiation that's taken place over the course of the summer. Uh, Another thing David Griffin said, Brandon Ingram missed the voluntary offseason workouts in California because he physically wasn't ready. And I wasn't able to follow up on this, but I'm assuming he was talking about his left knee, which Brandon, obviously twisted at the end of last season, missed 12 games, came back against in the, right before the playing tournament, had a nice playing tournament game against Kings. The first round series against the Thunder didn't go that well, but I thought that was interesting. He wasn't physically ready. Are you buying that?
I no, like I'm not concerned about over analyzing the wording. I think the rest of the words around that specific little section was kind of like the politically kind way of saying, like, hey, we were shopping him all summer and we don't know if it made sense for him to go and practice with all of his teammates when he's been on the block the entire summer. Like from everything we know, it sounded like pretty much everybody was wide open. Like how many times have we heard the words, there's an economic reality in this league? We've heard it now like 4-5 times since the end of last year. That may as well say, hey, we're trying to have him not be here. But those realities didn't play out. We definitely got past the tipping point where it was probably just best to do this. And like, I find myself oddly tumbling back now to the season's here. I'm seeing the guys, I'm getting jacked up because I'm all energetic because anything's possible. And now I'm sitting here just like considering the possibility. Like I see that picture of all of them standing in the same frame. And I'm like, he's really not lying when he says that's a hell of a lot of talent. And it's definitely more talent than we've ever had. That's pretty crazy. So like maybe they do just like they are weird enough and they are wingy enough and defensive enough and Zion takes, a leap that matches what his arrival body shape looks like. And maybe there's possibilities here that we've been selling short all summer.
To your point, yes, the phrase economic reality has been used a lot in the past 6 months. Bryson Graham, who's now the Pelicans general manager, was sitting right next to David Griffin on the podium. They both spoke at the same time. And at one point, David Griffin basically looked over at Bryson. He's like, Bryson has drafted so well that we're not going to be able to pay all these guys, what they want to. And I'm paraphrasing a little bit there, but that was kind of in line with the economic reality point. It's like, yeah, we got Trey Murphy at number 17 and he wants a lot of money and he is just a pure better basketball fit next to Zion than Brandon is. And so I think that's the economic reality that we're talking about here.
Yeah. There's a lot of ways, like it's cool. I don't think there's anything, the only thing here that has any sort of, hindrance or not even negativity, but like anything extra to it is just like what happens with BI and how does BI feel? I didn't need much more description than this. I honestly, the most shocking thing for me is like not even really shocking, was just hearing like how open Willie was to small ball, which we'll get into. But like the BI stuff, I think we got the notable stuff, right? We needed to hear him talk about like what you asked him a question about contract expectations. And like we got the questions out there. We heard what we were going to hear. He's playing this year, doesn't expect a contract extension. The Griff thing about the max money. I wonder how much of that, like, it's like, hey, guys, in case you thought the shop window is closed, it's not completely closed. In case you're worried about your future with Brandon, he might take less than a max. Any of you out there, I don't know. I think we kind of got what we expected on the BI stuff.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, they downplayed any of the controversy, and really, I mean, a lot of the controversy, it wasn't that big of a deal. But when around the time Brandon Ingram did not go to this voluntary minicamp, he posted a video to his Instagram of I guess this guy who's a pastor in Houston, basically being like, hey, you can't stay in environments where they don't value you. Like you have to get out of environments where people don't value you. He was asked about posting that to his Instagram story today. And the quote was, I'm not a person who wants to show up the organization and show up people in the organization. He's basically just really distanced himself from that, which is fine. I mean, it's just like, look, as you said, I'm here to play. Like I'm here to be a good soldier. And that's what you wanted to hear. I mean, it's not ideal, but he's gonna do what he has to do.
Yeah, and it's essentially like a subtweet, it's a guy like posting out loud what he's thinking, and he's going through some stuff, and we automatically try to read like the worst possible thing into it, but we're all actually saying at the same time, hey, stylistically this guy doesn't fit. And so like maybe he's just posting that video because it's like, hey, I fit somewhere. I fit somewhere else better than I do here. Like somebody hear me. It could be as simple as that. It doesn't have to be like the most toxic thing we can think of, but that's what we do with the NBA. You give us a little bit to grab onto. You give us an inch, we're going to take a mile.
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. I mean, I think he knew exactly what he was doing, and yeah, they
But
just
you think it
downplayed
was
it
the
today.
worst? You think it was the worst possible? Like you think it's the like I'm undervalued. They don't appreciate me. Like you think it's that stuff, or is it like why can't it be like just like a little less animosity than that?
I don't
Like
think it's animosity. Yeah.
yeah, I okay. Well, I just think it like is it really that big of a deal? Like I know in the NBA it's all a big deal if it's on social media. It was one time
Well, I
and
mean,
like
whatever Brandon and the Pelicans do, that's going to determine if it's a big deal or not. If he, does his job and like tries to play every night, and there's no like mysterious disappearances like there were at the end of Team USA when that didn't go very well. I mean, that to me will determine. It's like, okay, is this going to be professional effort or not? That will determine it.
all right. Well, I'm gonna come in with more positivity than that. I got my
Yeah.
little guy on here. I'm gonna be a little more positive than that and assume that's not the case.
All right. Willie Green was asked about the starting lineup. He basically was like, look, we're not going to figure any of this stuff out. I mean, we don't have any of this stuff figured out right now. Like, these guys will determine the lineups in camp. Like, it's going to be, who performs the best. I was able to follow up on a little bit of that. And I was like, look, are you just dead set on starting a true center? And he said no. And, I think from him, that's at least leaving the door open to the possibility that the Pelicans are starting a lineup that doesn't include, Daniel Tice or any of the other centers on the roster, and they're just going small from the opening tip. Like, that was a little noteworthy to me that Will Green is saying, hey, I'm at least open to that possibility. I'm not committing to anything, but I'm open to the possibility that we're going to start small.
I was surprised he went there. That was notable to me too. Like we talked out like what we thought he would say. I thought we would get a lot of party line. We don't know. We'll see in camp. Like expected all that. I was surprised at the openness to the possibility of being small and the willingness to talk around that. And I think that's also reality. It's good to hear because you shouldn't know yet. Um, and if they can find something where they feel like they can expose some teams, especially early in the regular season before defenses are like really locked in, then yeah, you should be pursuing any avenue. You shouldn't be, no one in this league, like just to step away from it a second, no one in this league should be locked into Daniel Tice starting center night one in the Lord our God's year 2024.
I think you're right about that.
So you should not be locked into that. So if you're not locked into that, you're like, if we got some interesting quotes from Trey. If you want to get him on the court as a starter, there's an interesting way to do that. So yeah, it was good to hear. I was surprised at the openness. I thought he seemed more open to not just the non-traditional five, which we're going to have more spacing from the 5 spot than we have had, but it seems like everybody said, oh, we haven't really talked about that yet. And Herb said we didn't talk about it yet. We saw glimpses of it last year. We saw a little bit of Z taking 5s. We saw a little bit of BI taking 5s. We saw an unfortunate amount of Jeremiah Robinson Earl. But Herb can also rotate back. So if they can figure something out and switches there, especially on certain matchups where you don't have like a joker down at the 5, then it's intriguing. Figure it out. Be weird. Lean into your weirdness. Because as of right now, if you're trying to force there to be a 5, your depth there is not great either. So if you're reliant on Tice as a starter, then he gets hurt. Like we're back to the problems of old where we went short on a position and somebody's down. And now all of a sudden we have a hole in the middle of the roster. And we're walking into the season knowing that. So yeah, I admire the openness. I thought it was going to be BS. It didn't really sound like BS. It sounded like we're just going to see how this thing works out. We didn't expect to get here. We got a lot of dudes. Let's go see what the dudes do.
Yeah. And it feels like to me, I mean, maybe they strike gold with the small lineup, but it feels like to me, this could be a season where he's changing the starting lineup from game to game. It's like, all right, we're going to throw Tyson there tonight. All right, we're going to start small tonight. It could be, you got to do the Daignault a little bit, and just like switch things up a lot and be really adaptive. I think, one of the interesting things about that is, Willie Green, he even acknowledges today, he likes consistency with the starting lineup. Like that is one thing we can definitively say
Oh,
after
yeah.
watching him be a head coach for 3 years. He likes consistency in terms of role. And is he willing to, I guess, change on that point?
And he may have to. He may have his hand forced here without having like the pure starting center, because that may just be the solution. You're playing against the Clippers. Maybe you feel comfortable going out there small. You play against like the Phoenix Suns. Maybe you can find some stuff there. But you get in against like Joker, you may need a body that can hold up, because he's going to hit you in a lot of spaces. Like that is, that is kind of a fixture of all sports right now, that ability to change up your personnel, like across sports, that the ability to be fluid through multiple positions and defend different ways. you know I it's weird to hear, like you said, like the easiest thing in the world last year was to predict starting lineups. The easiest thing with Willie ever is to predict starting lineups if everybody's healthy. This was the most on the fence I've heard it, period.
I'm going to try to just keep an open mind. I've made so many predictions or, going into the season on this podcast, and I just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I could see it going so many different ways. I could see the Pelicans just talenting their way to 52 wins, and I could see it going really poorly. I could see the Ingram thing shaking out a number of ways. I could see their small lineup kicking ass, and I could also see it really struggling and them like having to trade for, a true center early in the season and have no choice. So I'm going to just try to have no expectations and just see how it goes. Look,
It's the best place to be.
they're in this situation where like they're going to play a lot of small ball. I don't know if they're going to start games, small ball, but like they're going to have to play a good chunk of the minutes small ball. And, as David Griffin has talked about a million times, he talked about it today, Zion does not think of himself as a center. Zion thinks of himself as, a face-up slashing guard who just scores inside a lot. And I mean, look, Zion said, I'm just going to do what I have to do. I don't think he's enthused about the idea of, like being an interior, I don't know, a guy who guards centers and has to do like big man stuff a lot of the time. Brandon Ingram, basically made a comment. He's like, yeah, I've never done any of that five stuff before. He's like, I've done, post it up on the blog. Never done any of that five stuff before. You got Herb, who I guess will try anything. You got Trey Murphy. It just like going small. I would feel a lot better if there was like a forward who, loved doing that and had seemed comfortable in that role before. I guess that's one of my like things I'm looking at. I'm like, is there like a wing who's going to enjoy that and has looked comfortable in that role before?
So you're saying you miss Larry? You miss Larry? You want him
You
back?
know, I feel like I kind of did defend Larry the player a lot. He caught a lot of flack for Pelicans Twitter, and I was like,
He did a lot for that scheme, man. He did.
yeah, I think he was a winning player. I think he was like
Yeah.
a part of the bench being really good. I mean, I look, I've dealt with Larry sicking his 250,000 followers of me on Twitter for a correct opinion, but I still defended him as a player. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a good player. He's smart.
But yeah, so we're my biggest concern with going small, like there are two. One is that so much of the league has spent the last 10 years defending against those small lineups that it's just not a surprise and an advantage in the way, like kind of like the post D'Antoni years when everybody in the league was fast. Everybody's got a small lineup now. How much they use it differs among teams, and some teams, they have a star player who's huge, and so they don't ever really go small. But it's just not something teams haven't seen. It's not surprising. The surprising thing on our floor is Zion Williamson. That's the thing people can't solve. And that brings me to the second worry, and it's that teams that have gone small as a matter of like their textbook approach, there's only been one that ever worked. And it's the one that everybody tries to compare to. And it's not the one that we compared to well. Like you can't look at us and say, oh yeah, Golden State. No, we are not like that at all. What we're more resembling is the Los Angeles Clippers, who never make it to the end of the year healthy, but have put out essentially five dudes who are 6'6" to 6'8", 90% of their games, and then like bodies get wrecked. So, it looks cool. We get to the middle of the year when Kawhi and Paul are healthy. There's like a 12-game run, and everybody goes, the Clippers are contenders. And then somebody's body breaks down, and they're down a center, they're down a power forward. George is carrying the whole boat, or, some random bench player scoring 30 points a game to like surprisingly win them games. I think that is a reality we should fear a little bit. That putting out those tiny dudes relative to bigger guys, it just wears on you over time. And we haven't exactly had like these Iron Men when it comes to injuries. So I fear that's where most of my fear is.
You know who really hated the Golden State Warriors death lineup comparison when it was asked at media day today?
Who?
Zion Williamson. His quote was, "You're talking about the Warriors that won the championship? They won the championship. It worked for them. We have to find what works for us." I can't even make that comparison. They won the championship. We're aspiring to do that. Like Zion got asked, "Hey, look, the Golden State Warriors in the death lineup." He was like, you can't compare the 24-25 Pelicans to the 15-16 Warriors. You can't do that."
You apparently can't compare Kendrick Lamar to Illmatic either. Don't do that one either. Yeah, they're stylistically, they're not the same. Small is not the same thing for every team. Small with hyper spacing and super high volume 3-point shooting was the Warriors. The Clippers,
the best, most impactful defender of a generation, who's
yes,
a
anchoring it,
psycho.
Yeah, anchoring it. And they had two centers that's like Looney. Don't undersell Looney for everything he did as the other center. Like, they could play both of them together, or Looney could come in and just win all your bench minutes by being this hub and just like randomly during playoff series, just like turning into a rebounding fiend, which we experienced ourselves. Yeah, they're completely different, but that is the problem. Like, I look at the Clippers and I see, like, similar to Kawhi, I look at Zion and I think about the body, and I think about driving the ball and having to do so much, and the wear and tear and the concerns for longer term issues. And makes me a little nervous. But hopefully we get a flash like Kawhi achieved some things before that stuff became like part of his day-to-day reality. Maybe Zion can achieve some things before that's a concern.
I mean, he certainly seemed engaged and focused during the offseason. Will Guillory, who's obviously writes for The Athletic, did a really good piece where he went to Little Elm, Texas, where Zion was training this offseason, with kind of his close group of people. I think one of the good nuggets in Will's story, I think Zion has gotten pretty close with Aaron Miles, who Willie Green brought in last year to be an assistant coach. I think Aaron Miles has been, he's an assistant coach, but he's kind of been a PD guy, for Zion in some ways too. It just seems like Zion's starting to get a little bit of like, all right, there's got to be maintenance to my body, and I've just got to start the season in a good place to where I'm not playing catch up. And I feel like this year he's not going to be playing catch up. He's starting the race at the starting line and not 30 yards behind it.
Yeah, I'm just psyched the more we see him. And then, you saw him today, so you tell me if you see differently. It looks like the dude prepared like we thought. Unfortunately, the beard's staying, so I'm going to be getting off these big poppy jokes. But aside from that, like, he looks like he took the offseason as seriously as we heard. And it's exciting to see. It's exciting to see the curvature of his biceps. Not to sound, maybe too observant, but, we've had to live off of his photos over the years, and he looked damn good. And there's only one other offseason where we've been like this excited about how he looks. And yeah, I'm pretty hyped about it. And I read Will's story. There were a lot of good quotes in there. One of the ones that got me jacked up was like hearing that Aaron Miles is there, and then the quote about like he knows what champions look like because he's been around Steph and he's been around Jason Tatum. Like, he knows what championship good is. I was like, oh yeah, okay, so we got somebody in the camp. And it's just, he's saying all the right stuff. And for you heard me say this, we've been doing this for 2 years now. I was critical of how Zion talked back when everybody was saying like, oh, he's so great at media and he's so lovable. I was critical like from jump because I don't like canned and corny. And it felt like that's what it was. Like, he had answers for everything, and it was like stuff you can grab onto, and he smiled a lot. but I was never really that enthusiastic about what he said because I just kind of didn't believe him. This stuff, I couldn't write better, and it all comes out of him like in the correct order, following the correct prompt. Like, I believe it now. I believe the things he's saying, and he's not overstating it either. So yeah, it just feels like more just adding a little bit of evidence here and there that everything since that IST last year is just trending in the right direction.
I think one really interesting thing to monitor with the Pelicans this year is defensive rebounding rate. Zion talked about the key to going small is going to be, rebounding collectively. When Jonas Valanciunas was here, I mean, like one thing about Jonas Valanciunas besides availability is elite defensive rebounder. Just basically for a decade, been one of the best 3-5 defensive rebounders in the game. The Pelicans were third, and fifth in defensive rebound percentage in Jonas Valanciunas' 3 seasons in New Orleans. How far does that drop? Because I don't think they're going to be in the top 5 this year. How far do they fall? And can they just avoid being pummeled on the glass when they do go small?
The OKC thing last year, OKC knew it all year that this was going to be a weakness, and they never really did anything concerted about it. It is one of the things that happens when you don't have that center, and it's gonna happen to us. Like we are. I think we hope to be a mid-pack rebounding team and make up the difference on the offensive side and get the win the offensive rebound margin every night. And then just come close in defensive rebounding. Like, just everybody do your job. And if you get beat because like a hyper athlete got over the top of you because he's just bigger than you, we got to live with that. But we've heard the gang rebounding thing for a really long time. Like that's not a new facet. Even when JV was here, we needed, wings to rebound better. We've heard players talk every summer about needing to be better rebounders because they've been told this before. And that's, if there's one skill that Josh Hart brings on a night-to-night basis, he's probably the best judge of the ball off the rim from a dude that's 6'8", anywhere in the league.
Yeah, I
So
think Josh Hart once said rebounding, all it is desire. And I think that's a big part of it. But I think there's so much more too. I mean,
yeah,
as you said, it's like you can tell how the ball is going to fall off the rim. It's an anticipation thing.
yeah, like he's figuring in like who's shooting, how hard, trajectory, where on the rim is it going to hit, and you're prejudging that based on the shot. Like he's able to get that quarter second faster than you read of where it's going to go and just react to that space. So yeah, don't get killed on defensive rebounding. Try to make up the difference in offensive rebounding, but also just try not to let it get to you and just play through it. Like all the best coaches over the last however many years trust their process and you stick to it and you chip away. When the Suns were having those couple of years runs with Chris Paul, they'd get down like 15 and 20 points to people and they would just stick to their method and just chip away and eventually just win every game because they just never gave up on it, regardless of the run that somebody went on. We have been a team definitely that like has been shot out of games mentally before. And I don't want the rebounding thing should be like already set in their head. We want to do the best that we absolutely can, and you better be given every ounce of effort. But if you're getting beat on the defensive boards, that's gonna happen sometimes because of where we're at.
Yeah, this season is going to be a big test of how flexible Willie Green is willing to be. I think he's might have to just change some tendencies that we've seen from him as a head coach these past 3 years here. I mean, I think he's just gonna. This roster is going to require him to be flexible in a way he wasn't before, and maybe just okay, giving up points in a way the Pelicans haven't before. I mean, if you go in the Pelicans practice facility in Metairie, the words compete, defend, and share the ball are painted, on the wall. That's a Willie Green thing. I mean, he said defense from day one. The Pelicans have actually done that, 6th in defense in each of the past 2 years. I mean, I just wonder if he's going to have to give that up a little bit. It's just going to be harder for the Pelicans to be as good of a defensive team, I think.
Any chance that was painted over the word mindfulness? No. Okay.
Well, that's going to be something I'm gonna have to find out when this Pelicans practice facility opens back up after this renovation. Is mindfulness still up there on the wall?
Please, let's hope not. Um, Considering if you ask half the team, they probably couldn't tell you what it means. Um, yeah, look, that he's gonna. This is an uncomfortable roster. The only way to make this thing work is, in one way, it's going to feed into something that Willie believes in. Willie wants 5 out. Willie wants to switch everything. Like in the dire moments, like when he'd get Larry out there and switch the bigs, he'd do it. Like he liked doing that stuff. He sometimes preferred it. We saw those tendencies a lot. This will allow him to do that. Like he will get his scheme. He just may be getting beat at whoever switches onto the 5 because that dude is 6'8", and maybe 220, 230 pounds. But while it's going to change his tendencies, it is going to lean into the concepts, the basketball concepts he likes.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like they could go small with Larry, as you said, in previous years, and there's no, Larry. I
Yeah,
mean, there are guys as tall as Larry, but there aren't guys, as strong as Larry is willing to, mix it up inside as good as him at that.
there are going to be some nights where some people that drag that man's name are going to be like, man, what's he up to these days? There are going to be those nights. It's going to happen. We're going to have those nights where we just get killed by like somebody's power forward who's 6'9", 6'10", that can just like really, really punish you physically. That stuff's going to happen. But hey, we're going for a ride. We think we're going to lock down perimeters. We think we're going to throw wing after wing after wing at you defensively, and you're not even going to get to the paint. We're going to
Well,
try
let
to
me ask you
disrupt
this.
everything else.
Let me ask you this. What's the lineup that you're most looking forward to see this season?
I mean, I I really want to see what does it look like when all of the dudes are out there? Like if you put all the wings plus Zion, I want to know.
Are you
How
saying
fluid
are you
is it?
saying DeJounte, Herb, Trey, Brandon, Zion?
Yes. Um, I'm so curious because I do feel good, like defensively. Okay, switch everything, and maybe your 5 like can hurt me a little bit. Is your 5 even talented enough? And if he is, I'm probably doubling him anyway. And I still have a ton of wings out there. Like you're probably gonna have help if it's like one of the offensive 5, the true ones. So yeah, that's the most interesting because you can picture a couple of the roles, right? Like I see DeJounte dribbling the ball down. I see Trey playing off the wing and floating around. I see Zion potentially like dribbling into the paint. Like I can visualize all that stuff. When those dudes are out there, where's BI? Like I can see Herb standing in the corner. I can see all those roles, and I don't know. Like, can you even put it out there because those 3 dudes want to dribble that ball down? And I don't know. So I'm really curious what happens when, honestly, take any iteration where DeJounte, BI, and Zion are out there. I want to see them all because I want to see what happens with that ball because BI's usage went down last year, dropped to 26%. I will not be shocked at all if it drops again. And I'm just curious how that feels because he has been somebody that has typically like wanted to dribble and read the play for a little while when he's trying to score. And that's not really practical with this team.
I think that lineup that you were talking about, DeJounte, Herb, Brandon, Zion, and Trey, that's the one I'm most looking forward to see out there in the court too. Just seeing the 5 out stuff offensively and the possibility of turning other teams over and getting out on the break. I mean, that seems like a really exciting group to do that. I mean, you've got Herb and DeJounte in the backcourt. It's going to be a lot of fun to see those 2 dudes defending together. One player not mentioned in that group, which speaks to the talent that David Griffin and Brycey Graham, the Pelicans, have collected, is CJ McCollum is not even that lineup. And CJ McCollum last season was, among the 5 best 3-point shooters in the entire sport. I mean, still got a lot of juice he showed last year. I mean, that does show you just how many guys. I mean, how do you just see CJ fitting in this year?
I mean, I'm sticking by what I've always believed, that we start the year with him starting And then after 10 to 12 games, there's a migration into less and less minutes with the starters that eventually becomes the bench leader, the guy that comes in and like tries to put 20 on you from the bench. Um, I think that's just a like it's a difficult reality, but the versatility of those wings is too difficult. Once DeJounte Murray gets here and you get that ball handling, I'd feel differently if CJ was like this orchestrator as a ball handler. But we've seen some real struggle possessions over the course of the last couple of years. The more that play creation was summoned, the more times we had to tap him at the top of the key and say, "Hey, run this play." They just ran dudes out on him and pushed him off the ball and pushed him off the 3-point line. And it eats like 6-7 seconds of the clock, and you're not even starting your play yet. So those possessions cannot continue. That can't happen anymore. So we're talking about him being the third or fourth guy onto the ball. At that point, that says it's bench time when you're his size.
Yeah, I still don't know whether we're going to see CJ coming off the bench in the starting lineup at the start of the season. And as far as DeJounte Murray goes, there was a little bit of this talk today, and I think you're going to hear it a lot during camp. He's going to want to lead the league in assists. He's going to want to be point guard DeJounte Murray, distributor DeJounte Murray. His final season with the Spurs, 21 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists. I mean, I would love it if he's averaging 8 rebounds, 8 assists this year. I mean, good rebounding numbers, good assist numbers. That bodes well to me in terms of, what the Pelicans need from DeJounte Murray, all that. And crunch time creation too, like creation in high leverage moments when the game slows down in the half court.
Yeah. And the biggest thing, like to highlighting what I just said about the being pushed off the 3-point line, like the biggest thing that I'm looking for from him, a lot of people ask questions today to him, to Griff, to Willie about the addition of DeJounte to the clutch. What is it meant to do? Did you get him because he's a clutch guy? Like, what does that do for you? For me, there's two very specific things that we've been struggling with for a long time now that he does fix. If somebody sends a transparent double at you above the arc and tries to trap you up high, I need you to be able to do two things: either make a quick pass before the second player arrives or split the defenders with your dribble. Nobody on our team can split a double. Nobody. DeJounte can.
Zion kind of can.
Well, he just bowls through them, and if we either get a foul call or we don't. But like truly, like use your speed and your handle to jump between them before they cut you off. Like DeJounte can survive that double, and you can't just muscle him off the 3-point line and force the start of the play to happen in the middle of the clock either. And that happened to us in crunch time all the time. You had 12 seconds to run a play, and next thing you know, like, oh, hey, yeah, this went to crap. Guys got defenders matched onto him, and this is a mess. He does fix those two things, like more so than just last year in Atlanta in a bunch of games that didn't matter. He made a ton of like late game shots and knocked stuff down. That's not even the part that I'm thinking about. That's not even the part I'm excited about. If that comes too, great. I just want a dude that can survive on the ball.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. DeJounte is going to take over 5 from Herb. Herb Jones said it was a pretty easy negotiation. He wore number 2 in high school. He said it wasn't hard to go back from 5. I'm very excited to watch those two dudes get to play together. Herb, said he's been a big fan of DeJounte's game for a while. That play-in tournament game against the Spurs, actually, Herb's rookie year, he defended DeJounte for a lot of that play-in tournament game and did a really good job. I don't think it was like the most efficient game from him or anything else. I think we're also just going to hear a lot of DeJounte Murray is a different type of personality than we had in this Pelicans roster. The word alpha was used. I wish I could have like taken a future that DeJounte Murray was going to get described as an alpha. That would have paid off well.
Bro, I mean, how many times have we said we needed it? How many times have we said we needed a dude like that? And at the same time, he's coming out of a murky situation in Atlanta where, depending on the fan you ask, they might hate him because they are keeping Trey and vice versa. Like, there's a lot of people that are 50-50 on what happened there. We already did a dive where I went through all the analytics of the team with him, without him, during that run without Trey, and everything says to me that this dude is getting here at the right time. That his game efficiency wise and the way that he plays is trending correctly, and that when put under a defensive coach in a defensive environment, it will not surprise me at all if the Spurs perimeter defender is back. The guy that's getting major turnovers, and like you said, those runouts are going to be really, really available. And I like hearing the stuff about like wanting to challenge other guys to be the best versions of themselves. Herb kind of like shrugged it off, like, yeah, man, love to hear it. He didn't really, I wanted him to like react to it, and there wasn't anything there. But like DeJounte said some stuff about, look, it's not just about like Herb's transition play. Like there's more that he can do, and we want him to do that stuff. I know who's nobody's saying that. And everybody's seems to be receptive to it. I mean, the biggest thing was Zion showing up at the presser and talking about how they've had a standing relationship. Like, if those two dudes get it and get each other, everybody else is going to feed off that.
Did anything that happened today change your opinion about this team? Are you higher or lower on the Pelicans than you were before media day?
I mean, other than the fact that my dude Carlo feels like I made him in a lab in terms of how likable he is.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, I'm just saying, he's out here talking about our restaurants. He knew who the Carlo crazies were. Like, he's very engaging. I'm just saying, maybe it's because I got on the train really early, and so I get to do the thing where I like the band before the other people like the band. Maybe it's because I might get a chance to do that too. No, look, realistically, if there's anything I learned about today, it's that I am, as much as I am not a fanatic, and I'm a pretty rational person. As soon as we got NBA like media day back, I'm like, maybe there's just not enough ball for BI to be anything other than the high efficiency guy who scores 20 a game. Like, maybe I'm just going to start grasping, like, why even entertain this negativity? Why not just get gassed up and say, you know what? They ain't seen none of this before. They can't stop Zion already. And maybe I'm able to play like fast enough and switch enough that I alter personnel for some of these teams, and they're scared to put that big guy out there. Maybe that's the case. If that's the case, I've got more wing talent than you. So that is intriguing. So I'm going to start embracing the weird. Anything's on the table. This could be, messy 45 wins. It could be 58 for all we know. And
no, it won't be 58.
Hey, not on media day, damn it. Not on media day.
It will not be 58
It could absolutely be. Don't listen to him, people. It could absolutely be 58. We're not going to bet on that. I am not recommending that as like a gambling tip of the week. But like, if they pop over 50 or something, like, it honestly, all that comes down to BI and like, can he be the dude we've been asking for forever? And will he be willing to do that?
Yeah, and if Zion's just an all NBA guy this year, that the fit around him doesn't matter as much. I mean, Zion's so good, he can just transcend fit sometimes.
He alone may be the reason that people are afraid to put centers out there that then plays into our small ball hands. Like, that's very possible because we've seen so many dudes fail against him.
One of the best Zion games I ever saw, I think it was during his second year of Stan Van Gundy. I think he put 38 on the Philadelphia 76ers with Embiid. And Steven Adams was the center starting to him that night. Like, the lane was, clogged the entire night. And Zion was like, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to score every time at the rim against Embiid.
Came through there like liquid plumber or some 4 a.m. Taco Bell.
Yeah. He seems like he's in a good headspace.
Yeah. And he has the entire time. This has been going on for months. Like, if there's any reason you should get jacked up, it's him. And also Jose's extension, and like, let that dude stay here forever. And Herb, well, hopefully we keep him forever. Like, there's so much likability here, and there's so many storylines here. we're a little clouded by the one big basketball question that doesn't quite make sense. But I'm going to try and start, like, there's no reason to start with angst. We're going to start from a place of hope. You never know. They might come out and just out weird people. Regular seasons start funny. We've had multiple regular seasons where, like, some random ass team like the Kings rips off like 12 wins, and we're like, did we all sleep on them being title contenders? The Atlanta Hawks used to do this every other year. They'd start the year like undefeated for 10 games, and we're like, we slept on Atlanta. And then they'd end up winning like 49 because by the end of the year, things normalize. But in the beginning of the year, when you're different, if you can execute, which that's going to be the big question mark, like that's another thing. What happens when Brandon is asked to be the guy that's like standing at the elbow or standing on the baseline? Like, what does that even look like? I don't know.
Well, they're going to spend a week in Nashville and try to figure out what that looks like, Adam. And then we're going to get a 12:30 p.m. home preseason game against the Orlando Magic. Can't wait to see what the starting lineup is in that preseason game.
And look, if there's a team that's given us trouble the last couple of years with their lineup, like, and a team that could immediately test this concept, I'm very curious if Paolo and Franz and crew and Wendell are all there. They could immediately like wreck this concept out the gate and like make us feel weird about it, even in a preseason game. So intriguing stuff. But dude, I didn't realize how psyched I was going to be just to have like real basketball stuff to talk about again. I was like, part of me's dreading it. Like, we're going to need to do more pods, and, you know, I'm going to have to start like negotiating when I'm watching basketball games. And sometimes I'm going to have to watch it on my phone while my kid's watching the TV or while my wife's watching a reality show. Like, one of those things, like that stuff's coming. But dude, I didn't know how bad I needed this back. I needed real basketball talk back. And now we have real stuff to talk about. And we have dude on our team that we were maybe expecting not to be here in a position where there's a hole. But we also got a lot of dudes that are just really good at basketball, and fun things are going to happen. Eventually, Zion's throwing a lob to Carlo, and he's bringing the house down. And when he does, this hat is going to explode off of my head.
Well, you're not lacking storylines. The Pelicans are not lacking talent. That's a pretty exciting place to be. I mean, a lot of these teams are going into the year like they just don't even have enough talent to compete. That's not the case with the Pelicans. It seems like a wonky fit on paper. We'll see what it looks like in real life. That's going to be the fun part of the season.
Let's get weird. Let's get weird. Yeah, let's get weird. Let's just do all the things. Let's figure it all out. We have some preconceived notions. Maybe we're wrong.
I think one last thought what I have here is if the Pelicans do start well, it's going to be so funny to hear them talking that talk about, everybody said this wouldn't fit together. Like, that talk is going to be so funny if they do start the season like 18-6 or something like that. And, you know, CJ's getting up there after DeJounte assisted him 7 times and he hit 8 threes. And he's like, they said we wouldn't fit together. And it's like, CJ, you told me 2 years you were a point guard, but that, you know, that's okay. No, I'm just kidding. Look, I hope that's the case. I hope they kick ass and they're talking that talk about, hey, you guys don't know anything.
Look, we've been wrong before. It's a whole different ballgame when we get to the postseason, but regular seasons are weird sometimes. Let it be us. We have been through enough. It's time for it to be us. It's time for the good breaks to fall our way. It's time for the weird stats to fall our direction. Give me the 50-50 ball of life in 24-25 NBA needs to belong to the birds.
All right, Adam, I got to go. I'm getting up early to catch a flight to go cover them this week in Nashville. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We will get together and do this soon.
Let's hit another one soon. Let's go.